All right. Well, today, as I said before, we are going to be focusing on the subject of exploring non-government funding. I know there's one person who has heard a lot of this before. They've actually seen this presentation before. I hope I do a better job than I did last time for them, but I was a little nervous the first time I did this. But we're gonna go ahead and get started. All right, sorry guys. Had a little glitch there. Okay, so I just wanted to give you an overview of the things we're going to be focusing on today. So first of all, we're going to be highlighting the benefits of seeking non-governmental funding for your school. We'll discuss the various types of non-government funding sources that are available for your school to tap into. And I'm going to give you some examples of what some of the charter schools in Utah have been doing to tap into those sources. This is much better. I'm going to provide you with some strategies for obtaining government, non-government funding from the sources we'll be talking about. And then we'll address some challenges that your school might face in the process of trying to obtain such funding. And then we'll talk about some ways that you can help mitigate those challenges that you might come across. So that is what our focus will be for today. I'm gonna let someone in really quick. Sorry guys, my window went away and it doesn't want to come back. Sorry, I'm gonna go off the presentation for a minute and see if I can get this. There we go. Okay. I actually thought I had conquered all of my technology issues and apparently I have not. But that's okay, we'll get it figured out. Okay. Sorry about that. Let's see if we can. But having extra screens would help, but it didn't. Okay, anyway, let's get back to it. All right, so we're talking about non-governmental funding or non-government funding. So first of all, let's talk about why you might want to tap into these sources of non-governmental funding. First of all, the government funding that you do receive is often inadequate for your needs. If you have a very robust program that you intend for your school, you may find that the government funding is limited in what you're able to accomplish. And the school may have to make some of those trade-offs that we talked about before under budgeting, where you have to give trade-offs between what your programming is or what your facilities are, technology, all those different kind of things. And then government funding often comes with a lot of compliance and regulations. And this can limit the autonomy of your school and its flexibility in putting your funds where you want them to. So you're limited in your decision making on program implementation and things like that. Also, government funding may not always prioritize or support innovation or experimental educational approaches. So that can be challenging for your school as well when you're trying to implement those new things. And so you might want to look for other funding sources that will help you with that. So let's talk about the benefits then of seeking out and diversifying those funding sources that you have. So those funding sources that are non-governmental can help provide flexibility to your school. They can provide flexibility for the programming at your school, and unlike government funding, which can come with those specific mandates and restrictions that we talked about, private funding can offer a greater autonomy in decision-making in your program design. Also, supplemental resources can provide help you provide educational programs, technology, infrastructure, and professional development and student support services that you may not otherwise have been able to provide to your school or to your students. Okay, we have somebody else trying to get in, so hold on. All right, so we talked a little bit about innovation and experimentation as well. These funds can provide you with support for implementing those innovative education approaches and experimental programs, because private funders are often more willing to take risks and support novel initiatives that may not align with the traditional public education models that are out there. And it's important also when you're looking at non-government funding to carefully consider the implications of potential obligations that come with non-government funding. Often, like I said, there is more flexibility, but there are some sources that they actually have a lot of restrictions themselves on how funds are to be used. And you want to make sure that you're also looking for funding sources that align with your educational mission. You want to make sure that you're maintaining transparency and accountability in that funding that you're looking for, and you want to ensure that the pursuit of private funding doesn't compromise your commitment to providing quality education to all of your students. An example of what I'm trying to say that I heard about is where you want to make sure that it's aligning with what you do is, let's say you are a school that focuses on credit recovery. Then when you're looking for funding sources out there, if you come across a funding source that looks great and it would be very helpful to your school, but one of the things that they expect is that they see very high educational outcomes in your school. Whereas if you're focusing on credit recovery, your students may not be the kind of students who right now are going to be able to do that high performance. You're just trying to get them, get them caught up, and so you may not see that high performance that the funder would expect out of your school. So that's something to keep in mind as you're looking at these different resources as well. So there are several different types of non-government funding out there. We're gonna go through a few of them. And there are definitely more out there than we're going to go through, but we are going to touch on a lot of them. So let's start with the individual donors. The role of your individual donors can actually have a significant and impactful, a high impact on your school, whether they're philanthropists, which would be great, or just community members, parents, alumni. They all play a crucial role in supporting your charter school in the following different ways. They can offer financial support. So these donations can support your capital projects, your academic programs, extracurricular activities, teacher training, and student scholarships. They also can offer flexible funding. We talked about a little bit about that as these funds can generally be used for specific needs and priorities of your school. And your school generally has the freedom to allocate these resources where they're needed. They can also provide seed funding for if you want to launch a new charter school, they can help with that, or they could support establishing even just a new program within your school. They can offer advocacy and awareness by raising awareness about your school's impact and promoting your school's success stories. Their advocacy efforts can help generate support. They can attract additional funding and build partnerships with other stakeholders as well. They also you can use them to engage them as volunteers and mentors. They often contribute by volunteering their time and expertise, which can enhance the educational experience and provide valuable support to not only your students, but your staff as well. Also, they have networking. They can help with the network expansion and partnerships. They often bring their networks and connections and relationships to your school, which can create opportunities for collaboration, community engagement, and resource sharing with your school. And if you can find somebody who can do this for you, you can actually have individual donors that can contribute to the long-term sustainability of your school by establishing endowments or planned giving programs that can provide stable and ongoing source of funding, ensuring your school's financial stability and longevity. Now, those are far and few between, but if you can find one, it's amazing what they can do. And the next one we're going to talk about is your corporate sponsorships and partnerships. Businesses will often provide financial support in exchange for visibility or recognition, and it can involve supporting a specific program, an event, an initiative within the school. I don't know about you, but in my neighborhood, I can drive by a local school and outside on the fencing, I can see little banners for businesses that have supported that school. So those things are available to you as well if you just go out there and look for them. There are also the workplace giving programs. These are programs that allow employees to make regular donations to nonprofit organizations through payroll deductions. Now, hopefully all of your schools are 501c3 corporations, and you can benefit from this. So get it out there. Inquire of your parents if their business has such a one of those giving programs within it, and see if they can direct those funds or would be willing to direct those funds to your school. And then mentorships and intern programs. You can collaborate with businesses and corporations to establish mentorship and internship programs. The mentorship programs could be for for either your students or your staffs or your staff members. So, make those inquiries, see what they can do or what they're willing to do. Also, there are in-kind donations. Businesses and corporations can provide in-kind donations such as equipment, technology, books, supplies, or support, or other kinds of support for the school's educational programs. One thing that I've heard about that was done was there was a school that went to a local restaurant and just asked, right, would the restaurants be willing to provide school lunches at their school? And they were actually able to obtain where the restaurant was willing to provide 3 weeks worth of lunches out of a month for their students. And all they did was they went and asked. Now, that's not always going to happen, but if you don't ask, it definitely won't happen. So just keep those things in mind. The next, they can offer professional development and training for your staff. I kind of hit on that with the mentoring, but they can do that, which can enhance your teaching practices and your leadership skills of your staff as well. And then volunteer engagement. Often businesses and corporations can encourage their employees to volunteer their time and skills in the school. And this can involve guest speaking, organizing career fairs, participating in school events, or offering tutoring in support of students. Also, sometimes there are programs that already exist. I know this was many moons ago, but a school that I was involved with, Comcast at that time, and I don't know if they still do, but they had something that was called Comcast Cares. And they actually came to the school one Saturday and helped them get some playground equipment set up. So there are things like that. And I remember seeing the Comcast commercials where they would talk about doing that. So I recommend watch those commercials, see if any of them are like that. Watch the news. Often they like to show what they're doing on the news to help support different organizations. So watch the news, look at their websites, see if they have any volunteer opportunities or anything that they like to do to reach out to communities, and see if you can tap into those things. All right, the next one we'll look at is foundation and grant programs. Now, there are many of these out there. These grants tend to be very specific in what they will support, and they require applications, and they often have reporting elements with them as well on how what the results are or how you're using the funds. These can be very challenging to obtain. They're very competitive, but they are out there. I tried to look up a few myself to see if there was anything that I could give to you. What I noticed is that the bigger foundations, like your Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation or your Walton Family Foundation, what they actually do is they will usually, rather than supporting a single school, they will support a larger organization, and then often those funds are funneled down as sub-grants or like that. I know that one of the bigger foundations, they actually provide money to the Charter School Growth Fund, and I know a couple of our schools have benefited from that fund to get satellite schools opened. So, and another thing I found about a lot of these bigger ones is that they're looking to start new schools. That's kind of their focus, but they are out there. They're hard to find, like I said, but you want to, if you have the opportunity, if you have somebody who has time to look for these, I recommend they do. They can be very lucrative. There's a lot of money to be had from these organizations. They also might be one of the more time-consuming things as you work on your obtaining these non-government sources. This may be one that takes a lot of time to find, obtain, and make sure you're doing all the reporting requirements and getting it all right. Oh, and something else I wanted to say about this is you don't have to, when I was looking through and looking at these bigger ones, like I said, one of the things I was looking for was educational grants or charter school grants that were available. But keep in mind, you guys, again, hopefully you're all 501c3 corporations, so you can look for nonprofit grants, not just educational type grants. One thing that I did find that I was hoping to share with you is that there was a grant out there that was to help it's to help nonprofits in general with their capacity. So it was offering training for their boards and that, and I was pretty excited about that. And then I realized it had a very small geographic area that they served or that they helped to fund. So that one wasn't available, but I just wanted to use this as an example, though, as looking for those things that are that are available for nonprofits themselves that you can take advantage of. They don't always have to have education in their name for them to be helpful to your school. And also look for things that are for teachers specifically. That's another thing that I learned. Don't always use the word education when you're searching for these things. And I actually recommend that you start by searching online. So using keywords like nonprofits, teachers, education, charter schools, all those things, just try and keep in mind what you might find out there if you were to use different keywords that might pertain to you through just like a nonprofit kind of funding source. You can also network with other charter schools, so take advantage of opportunities when you have where you get together with your peers and your colleagues in places like maybe the conferences that the associations hold, or maybe if any of you have a great source of grants that you know of or aware of, and you want to throw them in the chat today, throw them in the chat and let us know what you found. So just take advantage of those opportunities when you're together with people to share what you know or to learn from them what others know. And then I recommend that you also stay updated with educational news and publications. Regularly check these publications for funding opportunities for schools as well. And then also one thing I did want to mention that there are organizations out there that for a fee will help you identify potential funding sources. One that I found, and I'm not recommending this necessarily, it was just one that I found, right? That if you want to go look at it, it was called Grant Watch. Like I said, I'm not necessarily recommending it. It's just something that I found, and you can look for others as well. And then you want to make sure that you collaborate with community partners, engage with those local businesses and foundations and community organizations. They may offer grants or be aware of funding opportunities that align with your charter school's mission and objectives. You can do this by maybe your school's a member of the local chamber of commerce and goes to those meetings. That's a good source of getting together and finding people that might be able to guide you in the right direction and finding some of these sources of funds. And then a big one, and maybe one of the easier ones, would be the crowdfunding and online fundraising platforms. It may seem like they're easy. There is some time intensive to really do this well. So things that you want to keep in mind if you decide to go this route is you want to choose the right platform. So try to choose one that caters to educational and nonprofit initiatives. And there are several options out there. So make sure you're researching things like fees, the features, make sure that they have the features that you're looking for. And always look for them because they may have features that you didn't know you were looking for. To keep that in mind too, you want to look at all the features because there may be something you weren't aware of that you wanted that you find. And then you want to look at their success stories as well to make sure that you find the best fit for your school's fundraising goals. And then there are a couple of items that you're going to find as a theme throughout this presentation. And one of them is this: make sure that you are telling a compelling story. You want to craft a narrative that highlights your school's mission, impact, and the specific project that you are raising the funds for. You want to explain how the funds will benefit the students and if it will, the community in general. And you want to use engaging visuals, use videos, testimonials. You want to do anything that you can to capture their attention and evoke their emotions. And then set a realistic goal. This is so important. You want it to be a realistic fundraising target that aligns with your project's scope and needs. And you want to ensure that the goal is obtainable. You don't want to go too far out there to where you're never going to be able to reach what it is you're looking for. So you also want to make sure that goal is clearly communicated to your potential donors. And you want to think about breaking the target into milestones or explain how each donation amount contributes to the project's success. And you want to do this so that you can motivate your supporters to contribute. You might want to offer incentives and rewards. These can be as simple as personalized thank you note, or it can be school merchandise, invitations to special events, or recognition on the school's website or social media channels. These kind of incentives can really motivate your donors to create a sense of community engagement for you. Then engage with your audience. You want to engage with those potential donors and the broader online community. You want to make sure that you're regularly updating your campaign page with progress reports, your success stories. You want to have pictures and videos on there. And you want to make sure you're showcasing the impact of their donations. And you want to respond to donor comments and questions as promptly as you can. And always, this is another recurring theme, express gratitude for their support. And then leverage your social media and your email marketing. Utilize social media platforms to promote your crowdfunding campaign. Share those compelling stories, those images, those videos, and encourage your school community and supporters to share them with their networks as well. And send personal emails where you can to the parents, your alumni, your local businesses, and your community members, inviting them to participate and help spread the word as well. And then collaborate with your community partners. So reach out to your local businesses, community organizations, civics groups, and to give them an opportunity to become campaign partners with you. Seek their support in promoting your crowdfunding campaign through their networks and newsletters, social media channels, and collaborate, because collaboration can expand your reach of your campaign and foster community support, which is very important. Again, express that gratitude, provide updates regularly, thank your donors publicly, acknowledge their contribution and the impact that they have made, share updates with them on the progress of the project and how the funds raised are being utilized. So it doesn't end after you get the money. You want to keep them updated on what you're doing with it as well. And this transparency will actually help maintain their trust and encourage continued support from them. And then make sure that you comply with the terms and conditions of your crowdfunding platform, which means you're maintaining transparency in your funding efforts and you're ensuring that the funds raised are used for their intended purposes. And like I said, I wanted to give you some examples of what schools in our state are doing to help them tap into these non-government funding sources. One of the things, there's one school in particular that I talked with who does a really good job of fundraising efforts at their school. And they gave some suggestions on things that they recommend that you remember when you're looking for those sources. They said, again, to remember that your school, you're not just a school, but you're a 501c3 nonprofit organization. And you can, and if you are, assuming you are, you can accept deductible donation, tax deductible donations. So I know that's not, for a lot of people, that's not as important as it used to be, but there are still some out there who might find that appealing as they're seeking where to put their funds. So make sure that you make them know, let them know that those are tax deductible donations. And you need to figure out what your needs are as a nonprofit and seek funding for your specific needs. So it's make sure that you're planning, you have a budget, you have an idea, okay, this is what we want and this is what it's going to take to get there, so that you know what your targets are and you're not just kind of hoping for the best, right? But you actually have something that you're working toward, then you know what the money's going for. And then this particular school has created a brand on Instagram for the purpose of building community, not necessarily for looking for funds, but for building community. And then the director at this particular school tells everyone that he meets to come and see his school. He is willing to offer tours to anyone who wants one. And when he takes people on those tours, he actually tries to make them feel like they're already part of the community as he's taking them on that first tour of the school. And then he also said that you should open your mouth and be willing to get in front of people. Don't be afraid. The worst thing that can happen is somebody tells you no. So you're in the exact same position if they tell you no that you were before you asked. So you didn't have the funds you're asking for then, you still don't have them if they say no. Not a big deal. So don't be afraid to ask. And then he self-promotes a lot too for his school. He does that. Another one that I talked about, or I talked to another school that I talked to, they actually have a full-time development director. And one thing I want to say about the development directors, they are very expensive, but any school, no matter how large or how small, can actually afford the right development director, because the right development director is going to actually bring in more funds than you're expending for their salary and benefits. But those right development directors are hard to find, especially if you don't know how to find one. So while you can, well, like I said, you can always afford the right ones, it's very challenging to find them. So just keep that in mind. If you decide that you want to go this route, it does need to be the right one. This school also has a funding goal that it's part of their budget every year. They make sure they know what they're expected to get for that year, and then they set their intention and what they're going to do throughout the year to make sure they reach that goal. They do this particular school because they have a full-time fund director. They also seek out grants for nonprofits. They have somebody who has the time to do that. I know it can be difficult. They have a fall fundraiser with a silent and live auction. They also have a spring arts festival where the students actually dance and put on a showcase of their art projects. They actually do a carnival as well, and this one they actually use for community building. So they're not seeking to make any money off of this event, but they just want to get their community involved with their school, and this is how they do it. They also have a cute little fundraiser that they do called Pennyworth. It has a little bit of a competitive element to it for the students. If you have never heard of Pennyworth, I suggest you look it up. It's kind of a fun little thing and a way to gain a little bit of money for the school. It's not a huge fundraiser, but it's fun. And again, seeking out those business donations and sponsorships. When they do that, they will also, as an incentive, they'll give tickets to their galas and their events for businesses who offer those sponsorships. They have an annual fundraiser or an annual campaign. A lot of the schools do that, and that's kind of one of those that's a little bit simpler. And you can actually, if you do it well, you can actually see a lot of money come in from those. They provide thank you notes from their students at this school. The development director for this school makes sure that they attend Chamber of Commerce meetings, which I talked a little bit about, to get in front of people and find out what's going on and what's available to them from the people who attend those meetings. They promote their school as a place where kids are safe, loved, and inspired, and they're always promoting their story. Another school that I talked to had something, this was more on the crowdfunding side, I believe, where they did a 24-hour day of giving. And like I said, it was conducted online. So they did a lot of heavy marketing for it via email and social media. And they said the key is lining up exciting matching gifts to inspire folks to give for this particular fundraiser. They do a lot of grant writing and a lot of special events at their school also. Another thing that schools do is they have a donation button on their website. If you choose to do a donation button on your website, that's a great way to get money in, but you want to make sure that it is prominent and easy to find, and let your community, your school, your parents know that it's there and where they can find it. And like I said, hopefully it's just very prominent on your school webpage and easy for them to find, because if they can't find it that easily, they're not going to pursue it in many cases. So that's the things that are going on within some of the schools in our state. Now we're going to talk about some strategies for pursuing non-government funding. We have several of them. So the first thing you want to do, and we've talked about this a little bit before, is you want to clearly articulate your mission and your impact. So you want that compelling narrative that clearly communicates your school's mission, its educational approach, and the positive impact that it has on not only just the school, but on the community as well. You want to identify your funding priorities and alignment. What this means is like if you're going after grants, this generally becomes very important, where you want to understand the funding priorities and potential of your donors, and you want to make sure that you're aligning your funding proposals and requests with the space of their interests and their goals and their values. You'll see that often when you look at grants, when you're looking for grants, where they will tell you, these are what our mission is, what our vision is, and we are looking for organizations that have like values that align with this mission and vision. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. And you want to do some thorough research to identify your potential funders who have a history of supporting education. Again, nonprofits that have similar needs to yours. And again, looking for those, make sure when you find those that you understand how to align with their purposes. You want to develop relationships and networks. So you want to cultivate relationships with potential funders by attending relevant conferences, workshops, networking events, anywhere you can get in front of those people and let them know what your needs are. You want to take advantage of those things. You want to tailor your fundraising proposals. We talked about this a little. You want to make sure you're aligned, that your school is aligned with what they want. And then when you're putting those proposals out there, you want to make sure that you are tailoring that proposal to show that you do align with their values and their mission. So you can't just like put together one kind of grant, one story that you hope is going to work for everybody. You want to tailor that story to meet what they're looking for as well. All right, you want to also demonstrate sustainability and scalability. Highlight your school's financial sustainability plan and the potential for long-term scalability. Funders are often interested in supporting initiatives that have a clear plan and an ongoing success beyond their initial support. And then showcase accountability and transparency. Demonstrate a strong commitment to accountability and transparency in your financial management and program evaluation. You want to assure potential funders that their investment will be well managed and effectively utilized. And engage your board members in this process. Not only your board members, but your other stakeholders, your parents, your alumni, and community stakeholders. You want them all involved in this fundraising process and encourage their involvement in your donor cultivation, in your stewardship, and in your fundraising events themselves. Utilize those online platforms and tools, as we talked about, to streamline your funding efforts. And you want to, again, establish those engaging and user-friendly websites that highlight your school really well when you do that. And then express gratitude and stewardship. Always, I know this is a reoccurring theme, but you want to make sure that you're letting your donors know how much you appreciate their giving and what the great things that you were able to do with that money, because that is going to help maintain that relationship going forward, and they'll want to continue donating to your school. So strategies for securing. So we talked about how to pursue it. Now let's talk about strategies for actually securing the non-government funding. These three components here are interconnected elements that support the school's fundraising efforts. We've talked a lot about that compelling mission statement, a lot about building relationships with potential donors. Now let's talk about that strong fundraising team. This team is essential for effectively seeking out and securing your non-governmental funding. They typically would include your staff members, board members, volunteers, and community stakeholders who are dedicated to fundraising efforts. And a strong fundraising team collaboratively develops fundraising strategies and identifies potential donors and executes fundraising activities. So their collective efforts really help enhance your school's capacity to engage with your potential donors and cultivate those relationships. There are several challenges that you can come across in obtaining non-government funding. Often, there's limited funding options available to your school. Funding sources may have, like I said, a specific focus area, like those geographical restrictions that I talked about, or eligibility criteria that limit the number of available funding opportunities for your school. So that's one thing to keep in mind. There's also intense competition as in the nonprofit sector, including in education, is highly competitive for funding, and standing out among the numerous funding requests can be very challenging. There's also a lack of awareness. Potential donors may not be aware of your charter school or the unique characteristics of your school. And you want to make sure you're educating your potential donors about the benefits and impact of your school. And, by doing so, that can be, well, it can be a significant hurdle if they don't understand that. So you want to make sure that's out there. Donor skepticism and bias. Some donors may have preconceived notions or biases against charter schools in general. And overcoming that skepticism and addressing those misconceptions can be challenging for your school. And then there's also charter schools may have limited staff and time and resources dedicated to fundraising efforts, which can also make it very difficult. There's a lack of a track record sometimes. New or smaller charter schools may face difficulties in funding due to the lack of a proven track record or an established reputation that their donors are aware of them. So it's important to make sure that you're getting that out there. Also, especially this is with the bigger grants, there's a lot of compliance and reporting requirements. So we talked a little bit about that non-government funding often does come with similar reporting requirements to those that you experience with your government funding. And they often have those strict reporting and compliance requirements, and meeting these obligations can often be resource intensive and time consuming for your school. And then another important one is donor fluctuations. Non-government funding can be unpredictable and subject to economic conditions, changes in donor priorities, or shifts in philanthropic trends. I know that in my former position that I had, there were a couple of really big donors that had given to the schools for years, and they were getting older. And so one of them actually died, and his children didn't necessarily have the same desire to give to the schools that their father had. And so that source of funding kind of waned a little bit due to that. So those things can happen. So you need to be aware of that if you're relying heavily on your donors or one or two particular donors. You have to kind of have something in the works to make up for that, or to handle those situations where that source of funding may dry up. Strategies for overcoming these challenges, they're going to sound very similar to things you've heard before. But first of all, you want to develop a comprehensive fundraising strategy. You want to create a well-defined strategy, and this strategic approach will actually help ensure a steady stream of funding for you. Kind of like we were talking about the school, that they actually had a goal in mind and they put forth their efforts to make sure that that goal was reached. Then again, cultivate those relationships, build those strong relationships with your potential funders by engaging them in the charter school's mission, vision, and impact. And then cultivating these personal connections can foster long-term partnerships and increase the likelihood of securing funding from these donors. Tailoring that proposal or that application to the specific requirements and interests of your potential funders is also very important. And then you want to make sure that you can demonstrate a measurable impact. So you want to establish or provide evidence of the charter school's impact and success. You can do this through data, student outcomes, testimonials, anything you can. Just make sure you're demonstrating that measurable impact, because that builds confidence for your potential funders. And then develop a strong board of directors. You want to establish a board of directors with expertise in fundraising, in philanthropy, and in community engagement. And you want to leverage their networks and knowledge and resources to support fundraising efforts. Engaged board members are helpful in identifying potential funding opportunities and leveraging their personal connections. So I want to encourage you here, if you don't have anyone with that expertise on your board right now, as you have those board members coming off and new ones coming on, you might want to look for somebody to bring on who does have that strong fundraising expertise and can help you in that capacity. Then leverage your alumni networks. You want to engage your alumni in garnering their support. Alumni can become very passionate advocates and potential donors for your school. Build those community partnerships. I know we've talked about that before, collaborating with your local business, civic organizations, community leaders, etc. And develop a culture of philanthropy, excuse me. Again, that's very, I'll go back to the other one. So the philanthropy, you want to foster a culture of philanthropy within your charter school community, and that includes your staff, your students, and your parents. And you want to encourage them to participate in your fundraising efforts and to recognize and appreciate you want to encourage participating in fundraising efforts and recognize and appreciate your donor contributions. So make sure you're doing that. And then I skipped utilizing technology and online platforms. We have talked about how to do that. Utilizing these technologies can actually make it easier for your individuals and organizations to contribute. So it helps with both those individual donations and maybe those corporate donations as well. And then if you're in a position to do this and you kind of found that you don't really know where to go from where you are, you can always seek professional guidance. That is a cost to your school, so just keep that in mind. You have to weigh the benefits. If you do that, can you actually obtain more money through using a professional than what it's going to cost you to use them. But this is something to consider. And these professionals can help provide guidance on effective strategies, proposal development, best practices for securing non-government funding. All right. So I know that's a lot of information, and I know you can see something like this and go, I don't even have the capacity to even look at any of this or to go forward and do anything. But when I hear that, I always like to say, pick one thing. Maybe you just want to find a way to start engaging with some individuals for some individual donations. And one way you might start with that is just do a survey, if you don't, of your parents and what their expertise is and who their networks are. Just try and find out a little bit more about them and see how you can use those things to help cultivate opportunities for them to help your school. It may be through not necessarily a donation, but maybe through, like I said, mentoring. Maybe they have some expertise that you could bring into a classroom or with individual students, even to help mentor them in some way. So keep those things in mind. It may be just a little fundraiser, or it may be just, like I said, getting that board member who has some expertise on your board who can help you with this. Just find one thing and start there and just go forward from that. So that is my encouragement to you today. There are lots of opportunities out there. Like I said, I know some of them are easier than others. Just find that place to start. And if you're somebody who has a really good level of involvement with individuals, maybe you want to move on to corporations and start seeing what you can do there. But just start somewhere. That's my encouragement to you today. Start with something. And so that's the end of my presentation. One thing that I did want to just kind of talk you through these last few months of the fiscal year. So, one thing that I am starting a new position with the SCSB. I'll still be with the SCSB, but I'm going to move into more of a role of working with internal finances rather than engaging with the schools as much. That doesn't necessarily mean that I won't still be doing those or doing these presentations, but I will be in a new position, so it might change the nature of things. I know I will definitely be around through the end of the fiscal year, so our next meeting is gonna be in March. We're gonna skip July because we're gonna skip April because in early May is the spring finance training. Wow, with USBE. So we'll skip April in favor of that, but we will do one in May. I am going to try and give you someone to listen to other than me, is my hope. So I don't know exactly who it'll be or what, but I got a couple of things in mind. So we will have two more meetings before the end of the fiscal year. And not sure how things will be going forward into the next fiscal year, but we'll figure out what we're gonna do. And thank you for being here. I appreciate you all. And we'll see you next time.